Center-state relations. 14.9. The Planning Commission, the National Immigration Council, the Central Council of Health and Family Welfare, the Central Council of Local Government, the Zonal Councils, the Northeastern Council, the Central Council Indian Medicine, the Central Council of Homeopathy, the Transport Development Council, the University Grants Commission and so on. The important conferences held either annually or otherwise to facilitate center consultation on a wide range of matters are as follows. I. The Governors' Conference presided over by the President. E. The Chief Ministers' Conference presided over by the Prime Minister. E. The Chief Secretary's Conference presided over by the Cabinet Secretary. IV. The Conference of Inspector General of Police. V. The Chief Justice's Conference, presided over by the Chief Justice of India. I. The Conference of Vice Chancellors. VII. The Home Ministers' Conference, presided over by the Central Home Minister. V. The Law Ministers' Conference, presided over by the Central Law Minister. Financial Relations. Articles 268 to 293 in Part 12 of the Constitution deal with center-state financial. 283. Article No. 250. Subject matter. Obligation of states and the Union. Control of the Union over states in certain cases. 257. 257A. Assistance to states by deployment of armed forces or other forces of the Union, repeated. Power of the Union to confer powers, etc., on states in certain cases. 258. Power of the states to entrust functions to the Union. 258A. 259. 250. 261. Armed Forces in States in Part B of the First Schedule, repeated. Jurisdiction of the Union in relation to territories outside India. Public acts, records and judicial proceedings. Adjudication of disputes relating to waters of interstate rivers or river valleys, provisions with respect to an interstate council. Relations. Besides these, there are other provisions dealing with the same subject. These together can be studied under the following heads. Allocation of taxing powers. The Constitution divides the taxing powers between the center and the states in the following way. The Parliament has exclusive power to levy taxes on subjects enumerated in the Union list, which are 13 in number. The state legislature has exclusive power to levy taxes on subjects enumerated in the state list, which are 18 in number. There are no tax entries in the concurrent list. In other words, the concurrent jurisdiction is not available with respect to tax legislation. But, the 101 Inches Amendment Act of 2016 has made an exception by making a special provision with respect to goods and services tax. This amendment has conferred concurrent power upon Parliament and state legislatures to make laws governing goods and services tax. Table 14.2 Articles related to center-state administrative relations at a glance. (14.10) Indian polity. The residuary power of taxation, that is, the power to impose taxes not enumerated in any of the three lists, is vested in the Parliament. Under this provision, the Parliament has imposed gift tax, wealth tax and expenditure tax. The Constitution also draws a distinction between the power to levy and collect a tax and the power to appropriate the proceeds of the tax so levied and collected. For example, the income tax is levied and collected by the center, but its proceeds are distributed between the center and the states. Further, the Constitution has placed the following restrictions on the taxing powers of the states. 1. A state legislature can impose taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments. But, the total amount of such taxes payable by any person should not exceed 22,500 per annum. 5. A state. A state legislature is prohibited from imposing a tax on the supply of goods or services or both in the following two cases. A. Where such supply takes place outside the state, and B. Where such supply takes place in the course of import or export. Further, the Parliament is empowered to formulate the principles for determining when a supply of goods or services or both takes place outside the state, or in the course of import or exports. A state legislature can impose tax on the consumption or sale of electricity. But, no tax can be imposed on the consumption or sale of electricity which is a. Consumed by the centre or sold to the centre, or b. Consumed in the construction, maintenance or operation of any railway by the centre or by the concerned railway company or sold to the centre or the railway company for the same purpose. A state legislature can impose a tax in respect of any water or electricity stored, generated, consumed, distributed or sold by any authority established by Parliament for regulating or developing any interstate river or river valley. But, such a law, to be effective, should be reserved for the President's consideration and receive his assent. Distribution of tax revenues. The 80th Amendment Act of 2000 and the 101 Amendment Act of 2016 have introduced major changes in the scheme of the distribution of tax revenues between the centre and the states. The 80th Amendment was enacted to give effect to the recommendations of the 10th Finance Commission. The Commission recommended that out of the total income obtained from certain central taxes and duties, 29% should go to the states. This is known as the alternative scheme of devolution and came into effect retrospectively from April 1, 1996. This amendment has brought several central taxes and duties like corporation tax and customs duties at par with income tax, taxes on income other than agricultural income, as far as their constitutionally mandated sharing with the states is concerned. The 101 inches amendment has paved the way for the introduction of a new tax regime, i.e., Goods and Services Tax, GST, in the country. Accordingly, the amendment conferred concurrent taxing powers upon the Parliament and the state legislatures to make laws for levying GST on every transaction of supply of goods or services or both. The GST replaced a number of indirect taxes levied by the Union and the state governments and is intended to remove cascading effect of taxes and provide for a common national market for goods and services. The amendment provided for subsuming of various central indirect taxes and levies such as 1. Central excise duty. Additional excise duties. Excise duty levied under the Medicinal and Toilet Preparations, Excise Duties Act, 1955, IV. Service tax. Additional customs duty commonly known as countervailing duty. Center-state relations. 14.11. States in accordance with the principles laid down by the Parliament. C. Levy and collection of goods and services tax in course of interstate trade or commerce. Article 269A. The goods and services tax, GST, on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce are levied and collected by the centre. But, this tax is divided between the centre and the states in the manner provided by Parliament on the recommendations of the GST Council. Further, the Parliament is also authorized to formulate the principles for determining the place of supply, and when a supply of goods or services or both takes place in the course of interstate trade or commerce. D. Taxes levied and collected by the centre. Special additional duty of customs, and VII, central surcharges and cesses so far as they related to the supply of goods and services. Similarly, the amendment provided for subsuming of 1. State value added tax, sales tax, entertainment tax, other than the tax levied by the local bodies, central sales tax, levied by the center and collected by the states, IV. Octroi and entry tax, purchase tax, luxury tax, VII. Taxes on lottery, betting and gambling, and state surcharges and cesses insofar as they related to the supply of goods and services. Further, the amendment deleted Article 268A as well as Entry 92C in the Union List, both were dealing with service tax. They were added earlier by the 88th Amendment Act of 2003. The service tax was levied by the center but collected and appropriated by both the center and the states. After the above two amendments, i.e., 80th Amendment and 101 inches Amendment, the present position with respect to the distribution of tax revenues between the center and the states is as follows. A. Taxes levied by the center but collected and appropriated by the states, Article 268. This category includes the stamp duties on bills of exchange, checks, promissory notes, policies of insurance, transfer of shares and others. The proceeds of these duties levied within any state do not form a part of the Consolidated Fund of India, but are assigned to that state. B. Taxes levied and collected by the center but assigned to the states, Article 269. The following taxes fall under this category. 1. Taxes on the sale or purchase of goods, other than newspapers, in the course of interstate trade or commerce. Taxes on the consignment of goods in the course of interstate trade or commerce. The net proceeds of these taxes do not form a part of the Consolidated Fund of India. They are assigned to the concerned, but distributed between the center and the states, Article 270. This category includes all taxes and duties referred to in the Union List except the following. 1. Duties and taxes referred to in Articles 268, 269 and 269A, mentioned above. Surcharge on taxes and duties referred to in Article 271, mentioned below, and any cess levied for specific purposes. The manner of distribution of the net proceeds of these taxes and duties is prescribed by the President on the recommendation of the Finance Commission. A. Surcharge on certain taxes and duties for purposes of the Centre, Article 271. The Parliament can at any time levy the surcharges on taxes and duties referred to in Articles 269 and 270, mentioned above. The proceeds of such surcharges go to the center exclusively. In other words, the states have no share in these surcharges. However, the Goods and Services Tax, GST, is exempted from this surcharge. In other words, this surcharge cannot be imposed on the GST. Taxes levied and collected and retained by the states, these are the taxes belonging to the states exclusively. They are number ATED in the state list and I-18 in number. Fourteen point 12. These are I. Land revenue, taxes on agricultural income, duties in respect of succession to agricultural land, IV. Estate duty in respect of agricultural land, Taxes on lands and buildings, Taxes on mineral rights, VII. Duties of excise on alcoholic liquors for human consumption, opium, Indian hemp and other narcotic drugs and narcotics, but not including medicinal and toilet Preparations containing alcohol or narcotics. V. Taxes on the consumption or sale or electricity. Ix. Taxes on the sale of petroleum crude, high-speed diesel, motor spirit, commonly known as petrol, natural gas, aviation turbine fuel and alcoholic liquor for human consumption, but not including sale in the course of interstate trade or commerce sale in the course of international trade or commerce of such goods. X. Taxes on goods and passengers carried by road or inland waterways. Sheet taxes on vehicles. XII. Taxes on animals and boats. XIII. Tolls. XIV. Taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments. XV. Capitation taxes. XVI. Taxes on entertainments and amusements to the extent levied and collected by a panchayat or municipality or a regional council or a district council. XVI. Stamp duty on documents, except those specified in the union list, and XVII. Fees on the matters enumerated in the state list, except court fees. Distribution of non-tax revenues. A. The center. The receipts from the following form the major sources of non-tax revenues of the center. I. Posts and telegraphs. E. Railways. E. Banking. IV. Broadcasting. V. Coinage and currency. V. Central public sector enterprises. VII. Escheat and lapse. And V. Others. B. The states. The receipts from the following form the major sources of non-tax revenues of the states. I. Irrigation. E. Forests. E. Fisheries. IV. State public sector enterprises. V. Escheat and lapse. And V. Others. Indian polity. Grants and aid to the states. Besides sharing of taxes between the center and the states, the Constitution provides for grants and aid to the states from the central resources. There are two types of grants and aid, viz., statutory grants and discretionary grants. Statutory grants. Article 275 empowers the Parliament to make grants to the states which are in need of financial assistance and not to every state. Also, different sums may be fixed for different states. These sums are charged on the Consolidated Fund of India every year. Apart from this general provision, the Constitution also provides for specific grants for promoting the welfare of the scheduled tribes in a state or for raising the level of administration of the scheduled areas in a state including the state of Assam. The statutory grants under Article 275, both general and specific, are given to the states on the recommendation of the Finance Commission. Discretionary grants. Article 282 empowers both the center and the states to make any grants for any public purpose, even if it is not within their respective legislative competence. Under this provision, the center makes grants to the states. These grants are also known as discretionary grants, the reason being that the center is under no obligation to give these grants and the matter lies within its discretion. These grants have twofold purpose: to help the state financially to fulfill planned targets, and to give some leverage to the center to influence and coordinate state action to effectuate the national plan. 21. Other grants. The Constitution also provides for a third type of grants and aid, but for a temporary period. Thus, a provision was made for grants in lieu of export duties on jute and jute products to the states of Assam, Bihar, Orissa and West Bengal. These grants were to be given for a period of 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution. These sums were charged. (14.13) Between the states, the respective shares. Center-state relations. On the Consolidated Fund of India and were made to the states on the recommendation of the Finance Commission. Goods and Services Tax Council. The smooth and efficient administration of the Goods and Services Tax, GST, requires a cooperation and coordination between the center and the states. In order to facilitate this consultation process, the 101 Inches Amendment Act of 2016 provided for the establishment of a Goods and Services Tax Council or the GST Council. Article 279A empowered the President to constitute a GST Council by an order. The Council is joint forum of the center and the states. It is required to make recommendations to the center and the states on the following matters. 4. The taxes, cesses and surcharges levied by the center, the states and the local bodies that would get merged in GST. B. The goods and services that may be subjected to GST or exempted from GST. 6. Model GST laws, principles of levy, apportionment of GST levied on supplies in the course of interstate trade or commerce and the principles that govern the place of supply. D. The threshold limit of turnover below which goods and services may be exempted from GST. A. The rates including floor rates with bands of GST. F. Any special rate or rates for a specified period to raise additional resources during any natural calamity or disaster. Finance Commission. Article 280 provides for a Finance Commission as a quasi-judicial body. It is constituted by the President every 5th year or even earlier. It is required to make recommendations to the President on the following matters. The distribution of the net proceeds of taxes to be shared between the center and the states, and the allocation of such proceeds. The principles which should govern the grants in aid to the states by the center, i.e., out of the Consolidated Fund of India. The measures needed to augment the Consolidated Fund of a state to supplement the resources of the panchayats and the municipalities in the state on the basis of the recommendations made by the State Finance Commission. 23. Any other matter referred to it by the President in the interests of sound finance. Till 1960, the Commission also suggested the amounts paid to the states of Assam, Bihar, Orissa and West Bengal in lieu of assignment of any share of the net proceeds in each year of export duty on jute and jute products. The Constitution envisages the Finance Commission as the balancing wheel of fiscal federalism in India. Protection of the states' interest. To protect the interest of states in the financial matters, the Constitution lays down that the following bills can be introduced in the Parliament only on the recommendation of the President. A bill which imposes or varies any tax or duty in which states are interested, a bill which varies the meaning of the expression agricultural income as defined for the purposes of the enactments relating to Indian income tax. A bill which affects the principles on which monies are or may be distributable to states, and a bill which imposes any surcharge on any specified tax or duty for the purpose of the center. The expression, tax or duty in which states are interested, means a tax or duty the whole or part of the net proceeds whereof are assigned to any state, or b. a tax or duty by reference to the net proceeds whereof sums are for the time being payable, out of the Consolidated Fund of India to any state. (14.14) Indian polity. The phrase net proceeds means the proceeds of a tax are a duty minus the cost of collection. The net proceeds of a tax or a duty in any area is to be ascertained and certified by the Controller and Auditor General of India. His certificate is final. Borrowing by the center and the states. The Constitution makes the following provisions with regard to the borrowing powers of the center and the states. The central government can borrow either within India or outside upon the security of the Consolidated Fund of India or can give guarantees, but both within the limits fixed by the Parliament. So far, no such law has been enacted by the Parliament. Similarly, a state government can borrow within India, and not abroad, upon the security of the Consolidated Fund of Security of the state, or can give guarantees, but both within the limits fixed by the legislature of that state. The central government can make loans to any state or give guarantees in respect of loans raised by any state. Any sums required for the purpose of making such loans are to be charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. A state cannot raise any loan without the consent of the center, if there is still outstanding any part of a loan made to the state by the center, or in respect of which a guarantee has been given by the center. Intergovernmental tax immunities. Like any other federal constitution, the Indian Constitution also contains the rule of immunity from mutual taxation, and makes the following provisions in this regard. Exemption of central property from state taxation. The property of center is exempted from all taxes imposed by a state or any authority within a state, like municipalities, district boards, panchayats and so on. But, the Parliament is empowered to remove this ban. The word property includes lands, buildings, chattels, shares, debts, everything that has a money value, and every kind of property, movable or immovable, intangible or intangible. Further, the property may be used for sovereign, like armed forces, or commercial purposes. The corporations or the companies created by the central government are not immune from state taxation or local taxation. The reason is that a corporation or a company is a separate legal entity. Exemption of state property or income from central taxation. The property and income of a state is exempted from central taxation. Such income may be derived from sovereign functions or commercial functions. But the center can tax the commercial operations of a state if Parliament so provides. However, the Parliament can declare any particular trade or business as incidental to the ordinary functions of the government, and it would then not be taxable. Notably, the property and income of local authorities situated within a state are not exempted from the central taxation. Similarly, the property or income of corporations and companies owned by a state can be taxed by the center. The Supreme Court, in an advisory opinion, 1963, held that the immunity granted to a state in respect of central taxation does not extend to the duties of customs or duties of excise. In other words, the center can impose customs duty on goods imported or exported by a state, or an excise duty on goods produced or manufactured by a state. Effects of emergencies. The center-state financial relations in normal times, described above, undergo changes during emergencies. These are as follows. National emergency. While the proclamation of national emergency, under Article 352, is in operation, the President can modify the constitutional distribution of revenues. Center-state relations. 14.15. Between the center and the states. This means that the President can either reduce or cancel the transfer of finances, both tax sharing and grants and aid, from the center to the states. Such modification continues till the end of the financial year in which the emergency ceases to operate. Financial emergency. While the proclamation of financial emergency, under Article 360, is in operation, the center can give directions to the states, to observe the specified canons of financial propriety, to reduce the salaries and allowances of all class of persons serving in the state, and Table 14.3 articles related to center-state financial relations at a glance. Article No. Subject matter. Distribution of revenues between the Union and the states. 268. Duties levied by the Union but collected and appropriated by the states. Service tax levied by Union and collected and appropriated by the Union and the states, repealed. 268A. 269. Taxes levied and collected by the Union but assigned to the states. Levy and collection of goods and services tax in course of interstate trade or commerce. 269A. 270. Taxes levied and distributed between the Union and the states. Surcharge on certain duties and taxes for purposes of the Union. 271. 272. Taxes which are levied and collected by the Union and may be distributed between the Union and the states, repealed. 273. Grants in lieu of export duty on jute and jute products. 274. Prior recommendation of President required to bills affecting taxation in which states are interested. 275. 276. Grants from the Union to certain states. Taxes on professions, trades, callings and employments. 277. Savings. 278. Agreement with states in Part B of the first schedule with regard to certain financial matters, repealed. 279. Calculation of net proceeds, etc. Goods and Services Tax Council. 279A. 280. Finance Commission. Recommendations of the Finance Commission. 281. Miscellaneous Financial Provisions. 282. 283. 284. Expenditure defrayable by the Union or a state out of its revenues, custody, etc., of consolidated funds, contingency funds and monies credited to the public. Accounts. 285. Custody of suitors' deposits and other monies received by public servants and courts. Exemption of property of the Union from state taxation. Conted. (14.16) Indian polity. Article No. Subject matter. Restrictions as to imposition of tax on the sale or purchase of goods. 286. Exemption from taxes on electricity. 287 euros. 288. Exemption from taxation by states in respect of water or electricity in certain cases. Exemption of property and income of a state from union taxation. 289. 290. Adjustment in respect of certain expenses and pensions. 290A. 291. Annual payment to certain Devasom funds. Privy purse sums of rulers, repealed. Borrowing. 292. 293. E. To reserve all money bills and other financial bills for the consideration of the President. Borrowing by the Government of India. Borrowing by states. 5. Reservation of state bills for the consideration of the President. 6. Discrimination in financial allocations to the states. 7. Role of Planning Commission in approving state projects. 8. Management of all India services, IAS, IPS, and IFS. 9. Use of electronic media for political purposes. 10. Appointment of inquiry commissions against the chief ministers. 11. Sharing of finances between center and states. And 12. Encroachment by the center on the state list. Trends in center-state relations. Till 1967, the center-state relations by and large were smooth due to one-party rule at the center and in most of the states. In 1967 elections, the Congress party was defeated in 9 states and its position at the center became weak. This changed political scenario heralded a new era in the center-state relations. The non-Congress governments in the states opposed the increasing centralization and intervention of the central government. They raised the issue of state autonomy and demanded more powers and financial resources to the states. This caused tensions and conflicts in center-state relations. Tension areas in center-state relations. The issues which created tensions and conflicts between the center and states are 1. Mode of appointment and dismissal of governor. 2. Discriminatory and partisan role of governors. 3. Imposition of president's rule for partisan interests. 4. Deployment of central forces in the states to maintain law and order. The issues in center-state relations have been under consideration since the mid-1960s. In this direction, the following developments have taken place. Administrative Reforms Commission. The central government appointed a 6-member Administrative Reforms Commission, ARC, in 1966 under the chairmanship of Morarji Desai, followed by K. Hanumantaya. Its terms of references included, among others, the examination of center-state relations. In order to examine thoroughly the various issues in center-state relations, the ARC constituted a study team under M.C. Setalwad. On the basis of the report of this study team, the ARC finalized its own report and submitted it to the central government in 1969. It made 22 reforms. Center-state relations. 14.17. Mendations for improving the center-state relations. The important recommendations are: establishment of an interstate council. Under Article 263 of the Constitution. Appointment of persons having long experience in public life and administration and non-partisan attitude as governors. Delegation of powers to the maximum. Extend the states. Transferring of more financial resources to the states to reduce their dependency upon the center. Deployment of central armed forces in the states either on their request or otherwise. No action was taken by the central government on the recommendations of the ARC. Rajamannar Committee. In 1969, the Tamil Nadu government, DMK, appointed a 3-member committee under the chairmanship of Dr. P.V. Rajamannar to examine the entire question of center-state relations and to suggest amendments to the constitution so as to secure utmost autonomy to the states. The committee submitted its report to the Tamil Nadu government in 1971. The committee identified the reasons for the prevailing unitary trends, tendencies of centralization, in the country. They include 1. Certain provisions in the Constitution which confer special powers on the center. One-party rule both at the center and in the states. Inadequacy of statist fiscal resources and consequent dependence on the center for financial assistance. And IV. The institution of central planning and the role of the Planning Commission. The important recommendations of the committee are as follows. An interstate council should be set up immediately. Finance Commission should be made a permanent body. Planning Commission should be disbanded and its place should be taken by a statutory body. IV. Articles 356, 357 and 365, dealing with President's rule, should be totally omitted. V. The provision that the state ministry holds office during the pleasure of the governor should be omitted. V. Certain subjects of the union list in the concurrent list should be transferred to the state list. VII. The residuary powers should be allocated to the states, and VII. All India services, IAS, IPSANIFs, should be abolished. The central government completely ignored the recommendations of the Rajamannar Committee. Anandapur Sahib Resolution. In 1973, the Akali Dal adopted a resolution containing both political and religious demands in a meeting held at Anandapur Sahib in Punjab. The resolution, General Ally known as Anandapur Sahib Resolution, TLY to Defense, Foreign demanded that the center's jurisdiction should be restricted only to affairs, communications, and currency, and the entire residuary powers should be vested in the states. It stated that the constitution should be made federal in the real sense and should ensure equal authority and representation to all the states at the center. West Bengal Memorandum. In 1977, the West Bengal government, led by the Communists, published a memorandum on center-state relations and sent to the central government. The memorandum inter alia suggested the following. The word union in the constitution should be replaced by the word federal. The jurisdiction of the center should be confined to defense, foreign affairs, currency, communications and economic coordination. All other subjects including the residuary should be vested in the states. IV Articles 356 and 357, President's Rule, and 360, Financial Emergency, should be repealed. V. States' consent should be made obligatory for formation of new states or reorganization of exist. (14.18) Indian polity. In states, V. Of the total revenue raised by the center from all sources, 75% should be allocated to the states. VII. Rajya Sabha should have equal powers with that of the Lok Sabha. And V. There should be only central and state services and the All India services should be abolished. The central government did not accept the demands made in the memorandum. Sarkariya Commission. In 1983, the central government appointed a three-member commission on center-state relations under the chairmanship of R.S. Sarkariya, a retired judge of the Supreme Court. The commission was asked to examine and review the working of existing arrangements between the center and states in all spheres and recommend appropriate changes and measures. It was initially given 1 year to complete its work, but its term was extended 4 times. It submitted its report in 1988. The Commission did not favor structural changes and regarded the existing constitution as one arrangements and principles relating to the institutions basically sound. But it emphasized on the need for changes in the functional or operational aspects. It observed that federalism is more a functional arrangement for cooperative action than a static institutional concept. It outrightly rejected the demand for curtailing the powers of the center and stated that a strong center is essential to safeguard the national unity and integrity which is being threatened by the vociferous tendencies in the body politic. However, it did not equate strong center with centralization of powers. It observed that over-centralization leads to blood pressure at the center and anemia at the periphery. The Commission made 247 recommendations to improve center-state relations. The important recommendations are mentioned below. 1. A permanent interstate council called the Intergovernmental Council should be set up under Article 263. 2. Article 356, President's Rule, should be used very sparingly, in extreme cases as a last resort when all the available alternatives fail. 3. The institution of All India services should be further strengthened and some more such services should be created. 4. The residuary powers of taxation should continue to remain with the Parliament, while the other residuary powers should be placed in the concurrent list. 5. When the President withholds his assent to the state bills, the reasons should be communicated to the state government. 6. The National Development Council, NDC, should be renamed and reconstituted as the National Economic and Development Council, NEDC. 7. The zonal councils should be constituted afresh and reactivated to promote the spirit of federalism. 8. The center should have powers to deploy its armed forces, even without the consent of states. However, it is desirable that the states should be consulted. 9. The center should consult the states before making a law on a subject of the concurrent list. 10. The procedure of consulting the chief minister in the appointment of the state governor should be prescribed in the constitution itself. 11. The net proceeds of the corporation tax may be made permissibly shareable with the states. 12. The governor cannot dismiss the council of ministers so long as it commands a majority in the assembly. 13. The governor's term of 5 years in a state should not be disturbed except for some extremely compelling reasons. 14. No commission of inquiry should be set up against a state minister unless a demand is made by the parliament. 15. The surcharge on income tax should not be levied by the center except for a specific purpose and for a strictly limited period. Center-state relations. 14.19. 16. The present division of functions between the Finance Commission and the Planning Commission is reasonable and should continue. 17. Steps should be taken to uniformly implement the three-language formula in its true spirit. 18. No autonomy for radio and television but decentralization in their operations. 19. No change in the role of Rajya Sabha and center's power to reorganize the states. 20. The Commissioner for Linguistic Minorities should be activated. The central government has implemented 180 out of 247 recommendations of the Sarkaria Commission. The most important is the establishment of the Interstate Council in 1990. Poonchi Commission. The second Commission on Center-State Relations was set up by the Government of India in April 2007 under the chairmanship of Madan Mohan Poonchi, former Chief Justice of India. It was required to look into the issues of center-state relations keeping in view the sea changes that have taken place in the polity and economy of India since the Sarkarla Commission had last looked at the issue of center-state relations over 2 decades ago. The terms of reference of the Commission were as follows. 1. The Commission was required to examine in and review the working of the existing arrangements between the Union and states as per the Constitution of India, the healthy precedents being followed, various pronouncements of the courts in regard to powers, functions and responsibilities in all spheres including legislative relations, administrative relations, role of governors, emergency provisions, financial relations, economic and social planning. Panchayati Raj institutions, sharing of resources including interstate river, water and recommend such changes or other measures as may be appropriate keeping in view the practical difficulties. In examining and reviewing the working of the existing arrangements between the Union and states and making recommendations as to the changes and measures needed, the Commission was required to read to keep in view the social and economic developments that have taken place over the years, particularly over the last 2 decades, and have due regard to the scheme and framework of the Constitution. Such recommendations were also needed to address and shows the growing challenges of ensuring good governance for promoting the welfare of the people whilst strengthening the unity and country, and of availing the of emerging opportunities for sustained and rapid economic growth for alleviating poverty and illiteracy in the early decades of the new millennium. While examining and making its recommendations on the above, the Commission was required to have particular regard, but not limit its mandate to the following. A. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the Centre vis-a-vis states during major and prolonged outbreaks of communal violence, caste violence or any other social conflict leading to prolonged and escalated violence. B. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the center vis-a-vis states in the planning and implementation of the mega projects like the interlinking of rivers, that would normally take 15 to 20 years for completion and hinge vitally on the support of the states. C. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the center vis-a-vis states in promoting effective devolution of powers and autonomy to panchayati. (14.20) Indian polity. Raj institutions and local bodies including the autonomous bodies under the 6th schedule of the Constitution within a specified period of time. D. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the center vis-a-vis states in promoting the concept and practice of independent planning and budgeting at the district level. A. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the center vis-a-vis states in linking central assistance of various kinds with the performance of the states. F. The role, responsibility and jurisdiction of the center in adopting approaches and policies based on positive discrimination in favor backward states. 8. The impact of the recommendations made by the 8th to 12th Finance Commissions on the fiscal relations between the center and the states, especially the greater dependence of the states on devolution of funds from the center. H. The need and relevance of separate taxes on the production and on the sales of goods and services subsequent to the introduction of value-added tax regime. I. The need for freeing interstate trade in order to establish a unified and integrated domestic market is also in the context of the reluctance of state governments to adopt the relevant Sarkaria Commission's recommendation in Chapter 18 of its report. J. The need for setting up a central law enforcement agency empowered to take up suo moto investigation of crimes having interstate and/or international ramifications with serious implications on national security. K. The feasibility of a supporting legislation under Article 355 for the purpose of suo moto deployment of all central forces in the states if and when the situation so demands. The Commission submitted its report to the government in April 2010. In finalizing the 1,456-page report, in 7 volumes, the Commission took extensive help from the Sarkaria Commission report, the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution, NCRWC, report and the Second Administrative Reforms Commission report. However, in a number of areas, the Commission report differed from the Sarkaria Commission recommendations. After examining at length the issues raised in its terms of reference and the related aspects in all their hues and shades, the Commission came to the conclusion that cooperative federalism will be the key for sustaining India's unity, integrity and social and economic development in future. The principles of cooperative federalism thus may have to act as a practical guide for Indian polity and governance. In all, the Commission made over 310 recommendations, touching upon several significant areas in the working of center-state relations. The important recommendations are mentioned below. 1. Facilitate effective implementation of the laws on List 3 subjects. It is necessary that some broad agreement is reached between the Union and states before introducing legislation in Parliament on matters in the concurrent list. 2. The Union should be extremely restrained in asserting parliamentary supremacy in matters assigned to the states. Greater flexibility to states in relation to subjects in the state list and transferred items in the concurrent list is the key for better center-state relations. 3. The Union should occupy only that many of subjects in concurrent or overlapping jurisdiction which are absolutely necessary to achieve uniformity. Center-state relations. 14.21. Of policy in demonstrable national interest. 4. There should be a continuing auditing role for the Interstate Council in the management of matters in concurrent or overlapping jurisdiction. 5. The period of 6 months prescribed in Article 201 for state legislature to act when the bill is returned by the President can be made applicable for the President also to decide on assenting or withholding assent to a state bill reserved for consideration of the President. 6. Parliament should make a law on the subject of Entry 14 of List 1, treaty making and implementing it through parliamentary legislation, to streamline the procedures involved. The exercise of the power obviously cannot be absolute or uncharted in view of the federal structure of legislative and executive powers. 7. Financial obligations and its implications on state finances arising out of treaties and agreements should be a permanent term of reference to the finance commissions constituted from time to time. 8. While selecting governors, the central government should adopt the following strict guidelines as recommended in the Sarkaria Commission report and follow. Its mandate in letter and spirit. 1. He should be eminent in some walk of life. He should be a person from outside the state. He should be a detached figure and not too intimately connected with the local politics of the state. He should be a person who has not taken too great a part in politics generally and particularly in the recent past. 9. Governors should be given a fixed tenure of 5 years and their removal should not be at the sweet will of the government at the center. 10. The procedure laid down for impeachment of President, mutatis mutandis, can be made applicable for impeachment of governors as well. 11. Article 163 does not give the governor a general discretionary power to act against or without the advice of his council of ministers. In fact, the area for the exercise of discretion is limited, and even in this limited area, his choice of action should not be arbitrary or fanciful. It must be a choice dictated by reason, activated by good faith and tempered by caution. 12. In respect of bills passed by the Legislative Assembly of a state, the governor should take the decision within 6 months whether to grant assent or to reserve it for consideration of the President. 13. On the question of governor's role in appointment of chief minister in the case of an hung assembly, it is necessary to lay down certain clear guidelines to be followed as constitutional conventions. These guidelines may be as follows. 1. The party or combination of parties which commands the widest support in the Legislative Assembly should be called upon to form the government. If there is a pre-poll alliance or coalition, it should be treated as one political party, and if such coalition obtains a majority, the leader of such coalition shall be called by the governor to form the government. In case no party or pre-poll coalition has a clear majority, the governor should select the chief minister in the order of preference indicated here. A. The group of parties which had pre-poll alliance commanding the largest number. B. The largest single party staking a claim to form the government with the support of others. (14.22) Indian polity. C. A post-electoral coalition with all partners joining the government. D. A post-electoral alliance with some parties joining the government and the remaining including independents supporting the government from outside. 14. On the question of dismissal of a chief minister, the governor should invariably insist on the chief minister proving his majority on the floor of the House, for which he should prescribe a time limit. 15. The governor should have the right to sanction for prosecution of a state minister against the advice of the Council of Ministers, if the cabinet decision appears to the governor to be motivated by bias in the face of overwhelming material 16. The Convention of Governors acting as chancellors of universities and holding other statutory positions should be done away with. His role should be content to the constitutional provisions only. 17. When an external aggression or internal disturbance paralyzes the state administration, creating a situation of a potential breakdown of the constitutional machinery of the state, all alternative courses available to the Union for discharging its paramount responsibility under Article 355 should be exhausted to contain the situation, and the exercise of the power under Article 356 should be limited strictly to rectifying a failure of the constitutional machinery in the state. 18. On the question of invoking Article 356 in case of failure of constitutional machinery in states, suitable amendments are required to incorporate the guidelines set forth in the landmark judgment of the Supreme Court in S.R. Bommai v. Union of India, 1994. This would remove possible misgivings in this regard on the part of states and help in smoothing center-state relations. 19. Given the strict parameters now set for invoking the emergency provisions under Articles 352 and 356 to be used only as a measure of last resort, and the duty of the Union to protect states under Article 355, it is necessary to provide a constitutional or legal framework to deal with situations which require central intervention but do not warrant invoking the extreme steps under Articles 352 and 356. Providing the framework for localized emergency would ensure that the state government can continue to function and the assembly would not have to be dissolved, while providing a mechanism to let the central government respond to the issue specifically and locally. The imposition of local emergency is fully justified under the mandate of Article 355 read with Entry 2A of List I and Entry 1 of List 2 of the 7th Schedule. 20. Suitable amendments to Article 263 are required to make the Interstate Council a credible, powerful and fair mechanism for management of interstate and center-state differences. 21. The zonal councils should meet at least twice a year with an agenda proposed by states concerned to maximize coordination and promote harmonization of policies and action having interstate ramification. The Secretariat of a strengthened interstate council can function as the Secretariat of the zonal councils as well. 22. The Empowered Committee of Finance Ministers of States proved to be a successful experiment in interstate coordination on fiscal matters. There is need to institutionalize similar models. (14.23) Center-state relations. In other sectors as well, a forum of chief ministers, chaired by one of the chief minister by rotation, can be similarly thought about, particularly to coordinate policies of sectors like PN, environment, cation, energy, food, edu and health. 23. New All India services in sectors like health, education, judiciary, engineering and should be created. 24. Factors inhibiting the composition and of the second chamber as a way forum of states should be removed or modified, even if it requires amendment of the constitutional provisions. In fact, Rajya Sabha offers immense potential to negotiate acceptable solutions to the friction points which emerge between center and in fiscal, states in legislative and administrative relations. 25. A balance of power between states inter se is desirable, and this is possible by equality of Sabha. This representation in the Rajya requires amendment of the relevant provisions to give equality of seats to states in the Rajya Sabha, irrespective of their population size. 26. The scope of devolution of powers to local bodies act as institutions of self-government should be constitutionally defined constitutio through appropriate amendments. 27. All future central legislations involving states' involvement should provide for cost sharing as in the case of the RTE Act. Existing central legislations where the states are entrusted with the responsibility of implementation should be suitably amended providing for sharing of costs by the central government. 28. The royalty rates on major minerals should be revised least every 3 years without any delay. States should be properly compensated for any delay in the revision of royalty beyond 3 years. 29. The current ceiling on profession tax should be completely done away with by a constitutional amendment. 30. The scope for raising more revenue from the taxes mentioned in Article 268 should be examined afresh. This issue may be either referred to the next Finance Commission or an expert committee be appointed to look into the matter. Appointed to 31. To bring greater accountability, all fiscal legislations biannual should provide assessment by for and by an independent body and the reports of these bodies should be laid in both houses of parliament, state legislature. 32. Considerations specified in the terms of reference, TOR, of the Finance Commission should be even-handed as between the center and the states. There should be an effective mechanism to involve the states the finalization of the TOR of the Finance Commissions. 33. The central government should review all the existing cesses and surcharges with view to bringing down their share in the gross tax revenue. 34. Because of the close linkages between the plan and non-plan expenditure, an expert committee may be appointed to look into the issue of distinction between the plan and non-plan expenditure. 35. There should be much better coordination between the Finance Commission and the Planning Commission. The synchronization of the periods covered by the Finance Commission and the 5-year plan will considerably improve such coordination. 36. The Finance Commission division in the Ministry of Finance should be converted into a full-fledged department, serving as the permanent secretariat for the Finance Commissions. 37. The Planning Commission has a crucial role in the current situation. But its role should be that of coordination rather than that of micromanaging sectoral plans of the central ministries and the states. 38. Steps should be taken for the setting up of an interstate trade and commerce. (14.24) Indian polity. Commission under Article 307 read with entry 42 of list -1. This commission should be vested with both advisory and executive roles with decision-making powers. As a constitutional body, the decisions of the commission should be final and binding on all states as well as the Union of India. Any party aggrieved with the decision of the commission may prefer an appeal to the Supreme Court. The report of the Commission was circulated to all stakeholders including state governments, UT administrations and union ministries departments concerned for their considered views on the recommendations of the Commission. The comments received from the union ministries, departments and the state governments UT administrations are under the consideration of the Interstate Council. 28. Notes and references. 1. Even now, the last entry is numbered as 97 but the total number of entries is 98. The entries numbered as 2A, 92A and 92B have been added in. Entries 33, 92 and 92C have been omitted. See Appendix 2. 2. Even now, the last entry is numbered as 66 but the total number of entries is 59. The entries numbered as 11, 19, 20, 29, 36, 52 and 55 have been omitted. See Appendix 2. 3. Even now, the last entry is numbered as 47 but the total number of entries is 52. The entries numbered as 11A, 17A, 178, 20A and 33A have been added. See Appendix 2. 3A. The provision for goods and services tax was added by the 101 inches Amendment. Act of 2016. 3B. IBID. 4. Report of the Commission on Centre-State Relations, Part 1, Government of India, 1988, pp. 28-29. 5. For example, under the Essential Commodities Act, made by the Parliament. On a concurrent subject, the executive power is vested in the centre. 6. This provision, the power of the states to entrust functions to the centre, was added by the 7th Constitutional Amendment Act of 1956. Before that, only the centre had the power. 7. For details in this regard, see Chapter 15. 8. Constituent Assembly Debates, Volume 7, pp. 41-42. 9. For details, see Chapter 54. 10. For details, see Chapter 78. 11. For details, see Chapter 15. 12. Entries 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92A, 92B and 96. See Appendix 11. 13. Entries 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 53, 54, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, and 66. See Appendix 2. 14. In this regard, the 101 inches Amendment Act of 2016 inserted Article 246A in the Constitution. 15. Originally, this limit was only 3,250 per annum. The 60th Amendment Act of 1988 raised it to 22,500 per annum.